Welcome. I'm Will Ross with Burn the Ship Podcast, a podcast dedicated to business owners, leaders, and entrepreneurs in the business community to share their journey of ultimately burning the ship. You know, what led us here. Today I have a special guest with me, Jody Weinberg. Am I saying Weinberg? Is that correct?
Correct.
Awesome, awesome. And Jody, you're with themeetingsyouwant.com. Is it, I saw on your website, JTEL. Is JTEL the name of the
The
company? How to
official
break that down
company
real quick.
name is Teleconnections.
Okay,
And so we've shortened that up to say JTEL through the years,
got it.
just because JTEL Connects is kind of a mouthful.
Sure.
Um, and we actually have had lots of URLs. And then it was either a year or two ago, my COO found Meetings You Want, which is really what we do.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like the perfect URL.
Absolutely. So did you guys have to wait to get that one, or it just kind of like struck you
No,
and you're
he
like,
just
let's
like
roll with it?
went on one day and because we were your pipe, we, we were, we'll get your foot in their door
Okay.
because we've been doing this for 24 years.
Yep.
And then it was what's in your pipeline.
Okay.
Then it was your pipeline.net. And now it's meetingsyouwant.com.
I
So
like I
we
like
just
the
kind of,
meetingsyouwant.com.
oh, I love it.
Yeah, it
Love it.
rolls off the tongue a lot cleaner if you don't mind me sharing my opinion, and
Well, and it's
it's very to
exactly
the
what we
point.
do.
Yep.
So it's just like a no brainer.
Boom, right there. Well, with that, let's lead into exactly what you do. So, what is, themeetingsyouwant.com, and what is behind kind of what you do? And then I want to jump a little bit more into your story of what you've, been doing there and how you got there.
Well, the 30-second,
Bring it.
that's really more like a couple minutes, is we set very high level B2B sales meetings
Okay.
that are qualified with hard to reach decision makers. So, in a nutshell, what that means is clients in the professional services industries, which we can talk about specifics later if you want,
Sure.
hire us to prospect. So, they're monthly programs, they're not like one offs.
Right.
We prospect companies they want, pull a list, they scrub it. I design a script, and we, between emailing and cold calling, our goal is to build their pipeline and in doing so, get appointments with decision makers that are qualified.
Beautiful. I mean, I'm on the sales side of things too with my other venture, which is Safe Harbor Insurance. And I know personally, no, I like to say insurance is sexy. Insurance is not sexy, right? It's not something
Not
that
at
folks
all.
really want to talk about,
It's
and it's
necessary.
really it's necessary, and that also makes it even more difficult because it's like out of sight, out of mind, and so really getting in front of the right folks at the right time because they don't want to be talking about it after they've just renewed their insurance. It can be difficult, right? And it can be deflating. And so I'm excited to hear more about how you guys have approached this and how those clients that you work with have benefited from it. But before we go too deep down that hole, let's hear more about you, right? And kind of, you mentioned 24 years. JTEL's been operating. Have you been there the whole 24 years? Talk us through just kind of what led to the decision of we are going to actually be kind of on the outside, but purely in sales. But we're not ultimately selling. We're selling, relationships, I guess would be the best way. How would you even
Yeah,
say that?
that's exactly
Okay.
right.
Okay.
Well, it's actually 34 years I've been doing this, but
34. All right.
I've had the company for 24.
Okay.
Okay. So many years ago, my background is credit and collections and public speaking. So
Okay.
not sales at all.
Yeah.
But if you think about it, you sort of have to be a little salesy to get people to pay you money.
100%. I mean, there's definitely the way you talk to people can influence those other individuals a lot faster to maybe be motivated to
Yeah.
do what you need them
Well,
to
I
do.
didn't start out nice. It took me getting, I was an auto collector and mortgage, and they wrote me up one day and they said, this isn't working. So you better turn your act around. So I did. I was like 20. It was right out of college back then. So, so I did that, and then I got married, and I had baby number one, and then she's 34 today. So
Okay.
do the math. So
Yep.
then the family insurance agent, you talk about insurance, was at our
Mm-hmm.
place, and we were talking, and I said, "You're gonna have something I can do, and I'm ready to kind of do something." And she said, "Yeah." So Paige was 3 months old, and called Cheryl and she said, and so my dad always taught me act as if, right?
Okay.
So she said, I want you to set me appointments. And I said, okay, great. What's that mean? And she came over and we ripped yellow pages out of the yellow pages. And I worked with the recipe box and cards. And I called for X dates. So
Okay.
anybody that doesn't know insurance knows those are
Yep.
renewal dates.
They are.
Those are the days where you held the telephone. And then we grew up to the foam on the telephone. So at least you didn't have to cock your head so much. And so I started in commercial insurance,
Okay.
B2B. I did a little
Yep.
bit of personal lines. I really didn't like it calling at night, bothering people at home. I've really been very B2B focused. So
Okay.
I did that for the couple of large brokers for about 10 years.
All right. Okay. So you were really, I mean, it wasn't just cutting your teeth. I mean, you were out there selling yourself. It wasn't just with this one individual insurance agent. You really realized you had something going, and you went after that.
Well, I was an employee though. I was an
Yeah.
employee of those companies at that time.
Okay. Okay.
But then the second brokerage I was with for 7 years was regional, and a big conglomerate took them over, who shall remain nameless because they're still around, and they dug into the books a couple years later and thought, oh, that's why they needed to sell. So they shut down Iowa, Denver, and me.
Oh, okay.
That was 24 years ago.
All right. I'm
That's when
picking
I
up
went
the
on my own.
timeline. Yes. And
So
you're based out of Minneapolis?
I am.
Okay, nice. So 24 years ago, you start J Telecommunications.
Connections.
Just you?
J Teleconnections.
Connections,
You
excuse me.
can't say, a lot of people do that, but communications to me means like telecom,
Yeah,
which
no, yeah, I feel you
years
there.
ago
Yeah.
people say, oh, you're in the telecom business? No, we connect people. Yeah, it was just me years ago. And
And what
then,
would so from there, were you still focusing on commercial insurance, or did you
yeah,
kind of diversify? Okay,
yeah. No, I was big insurance.
sure.
And, so I was doing, yeah, I was actually very good at it. So did a lot of commercial insurance. Then at that time, did banking,
Okay.
financial planners. And as we've grown, unfortunately, some of these industries have become commodities,
Yes.
meaning, right? Meaning
Mm-hmm.
people don't want relationships, which is really very sad, I think.
Right.
And I'd pitch relationships. I wouldn't pitch bidding. I didn't even, they'd
I
say,
love hearing that.
yeah,
Yeah.
call us 60 to 90 days before our renewal. We renew in December. And I'd say, no, you know what? Could I call you like 5 to 6 months out? Or I'd try to get the meeting if I was at that 6 months out. Because we didn't have X dates back then. You had to call for them.
Right.
Today, you get reports, they give you all that stuff. Not then. And I approached people, which I still do no matter what industry I'm calling for. I approach people as if you're telling me to call back at 90 days, you're telling everybody else. And I don't want to be part of the herd of cattle.
Fair.
So
That's a great way to
for
look at it.
us, it's about a relationship. Well,
Mm-hmm.
back then that worked. Today it's you can go online and you can plug in the numbers and get a quote.
Yeah.
Or, yeah, we got spec sheets on the front desk. Go ahead and stop by, pick them up. No, we don't want spec sheets. We want a relationship. So that's a tough one.
And so
Uh,
the way you say that though, how do you in this 2024 and the environment that we're in? I still feel the passion in your voice that relationships are critical to you, but at the same
yeah,
time, the understanding that some of these industries have become more like a commodity. How do you adjust,
I
or
don't
do you
have
not?
those industries.
Gotcha.
I mean, what I'm looking for, which I stole from a mentor of mine many years ago, is I'm looking for what they call strong DV in this business, which is differentiating value.
Okay.
I got to be able to write a script. I got to be able to feel like I can get them in the door. And I keep saying but I have a team. I mean, I still do a little bit of the calling on the really hard stuff, but I got a team of people
How many folks
and
do you have working with you now?
about 10.
10. Okay, great. And I know that when I was looking at your website, you guys have it looks like a West Coast presence in that in Eugene, and then
Mhm.
you also are in
Minneapolis.
Minneapolis. Yep.
Yeah. We're virtual. We have been since day one. The pandemic did
Okay.
not do it to us. So everybody's all over the US.
Gotcha. So you guys are spread out, so you understand those regions that you're in, and different clients, and kind of those temperaments of business owners, if you will. And you also were way ahead of the curve with COVID.
I was.
You
And one of
definitely
my
were.
former clients said to me many years ago, one of my beginning clients, and they said, when they left, I don't know how you're going to run a virtual operation. I don't even think you said virtual at those days. I don't know how you're going to, do whatever they called it, offsite, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
You tell me I can't do something, I prove you wrong every time.
24 years. Let's go. That's
That's
awesome.
good, Jay. That's no, you're not Jay. You're Will.
Yeah, you got it. Yep. Jay's the other guy.
Sorry.
I mean, fair enough. Although if you saw us beside each other, I don't think you'd mistake us.
Oh, really? Okay. Okay.
No, I'm giving him a hard time, and he's not even in here to defend himself.
Yeah, that's all
So,
right.
so tell us more about. So you've got ten team members. You guys are looking for differentiate differentiated
Clients
value.
that have a strong DV.
Yeah, there you go. So what does that look like? How do you continue to stay ahead of that? How are you guys like? What are those kind of
Got to go with what's technology is huge.
okay,
Med tech, med device, huge. Strong DVs. They're different.
strong
Each
DVs?
uh
And how are folks finding you, right? Like, let's not, and it doesn't sound like you're doing insurance, so maybe this is a good example because you can just kind of speak to it because it's in your past due, so you know the world I'm talking about. But insurance agent looking for leads, right? Let's say, my background coming up in insurance was to be very specific, to be niche oriented. The inch wide, mile deep mentality of I will never know your business as well as you, but I'd like to think that I'm, second in line if not, because I'm not trying to do everything for everybody. But it's still hard for me to get out in front. But it's just say that I called on you and I said, hey, I'm looking to go. There was one point in my time in my life where I was calling on renewable energy, and this was kind of during the Obama era.
oh, wait a
So,
minute. You haven't heard me. We were frozen for the last 3 minutes.
oh no, all right,
Yeah. I heard you say I'm second in line. I'll never know your business. Okay.
right. So just from let's say for an example standpoint, that as an insurance agent, I reach out to you and I say, I'm looking to call on renewable energy providers in the United States, right? And, I was calling on that probably back in 2015, 14 time. How do they get to you? But then also, what is that sort of like value prop that you're giving to them, right? Like, how does that kind of taste? What as far as just that process for you?
People find us through LinkedIn, a lot of
Okay,
referral business. Obviously, I've been around the block for a while. And it's not just Minnesota. I mean, it's across the country.
right, yeah. Well,
Um, we do e-blasting.
okay,
We actually have a sister company that's what we do, e-blasting.
gotcha,
And that's part of
gotcha.
the packages. And so yeah, that stuff. Networking. I do a lot of networking.
Well, I mean, I can only imagine how large your network is at this point after doing this for 34 years and 24 years, with JTEL. It's probably pretty big. So, what are some of those differentiators that you guys are bringing, right? You talk about differentiated value. What differentiates you guys from other lead
Call
referral
center.
sources?
Yeah, call center. Um, we're seasoned, mature, and experienced.
Sure, I can
I
see that.
don't have
Yeah.
any kids working for me. That
Okay.
nobody's reading scripts off computers. This is not a call center. We have a very unique interview situation where, I don't do it. So, because like everybody, my brother wants to work for me, but it's like, no, you got to go through my COO, and he's got a very unique system that really picks out the needles in the haystack.
I mean, it
And
definitely
he's
would
good.
take a unique, personality and individual to do what you guys do on a daily basis.
And the good news is most of my people have been with me on average about 10 years now.
It's huge.
My COO has been with me 14 as of last week. So we don't really have a turnover. This is not a telemarketing game.
Right.
This is not. roofing and siding, B2C, follow up on your car service. Like, I'm not beating up telemarketing, but to me, that's a
No,
yes. That's a yes or no answer. For us, I mean, you got to have half a brain on you to pitch what we pitch.
absolutely. Well, and to be able to pitch what seems like to different industries, kind of a variety, right? If I've reached out and engaged with you, to some degree, you've got to understand what my product is before you're
Right.
actually going out and engaging with the individuals that I'm kind of tasking you with. Now,
Yes.
how much as me as a client of yours, for example, asking for you to create these, relationships for me, am I telling you I want this guy, I want this lady, I want this what, or is it I want this dynamic in this industry because they fit what the product is that I have?
No, you're actually, I mean, we've got an implementation doc. You're actually going to give us demographics, titles, size of companies, geography, industry. Then there's a bunch of questions for me to put the pitch together. Then you guys
Sure,
approve everything. We don't make a move without you guys approving it. And
got it.
then my callers have to be able to take a 2-page script, which is literally how they start out because you guys just flood us with information. And I want everything to be at the caller's hands. So here's a client I work, and this is what I look at every day. Three
Oh wow.
pages.
Okay. Yeah.
There's more behind those.
Sure. Sure.
But I mean, I've got it down pretty well now. I've been doing it, but she's kind of always feeding me new information. So then I like there's a new tip here and I gotta be able to throw that in. And so yeah, I mean, so yeah, we ask for lots of stuff. We also have weekly conference calls with you guys. You also get
Okay.
weekly call reports.
Okay. That's good to
There's
know.
a
So
lot
there's
of
always update.
accountability
There's
on
always
our end.
communication. Say that one more time. I'm sorry.
There's a lot of accountability on our end.
The, absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, that's critical. Um, so when you, and I'm trying to kind of just divert here a little bit, but not a ton.
Sure.
When it comes to those relationships, right? Like how candid are you all coming out of the gate with this prospect? Or I'm not exactly sure the term that you guys would use, but I mean, are you? I want to introduce you to this person. This is my goal. Is there a little bit more of that salesiness to it, where it's building relationships isn't always about showing your hand right out of the gate. At the same time, you want to be genuine. You don't want to feel like you're timeshare salesman. And so where's that? How does that kind of work?
Well, it's knowing enough to what to say. I mean, it's being skilled enough to take this long script and turn it into a 2-minuter. I mean,
Okay.
really. I mean, we're calling decision-making level executives, not managers. I mean, some cases in manufacturing, but most of the time it's C levels, directors, VPs.
So I
And,
mean, you go ahead.
really what the proposition is being able to pitch them and see if there's an interest to just meet with my boss,
Right.
the CEO of our company. So we never look like a third party.
Never look like that's, and I think that's something important because I didn't necessarily pick up
Oh,
on that. So that okay, so
no, we
that's a
have
critical component
emails
then.
at companies. We send invites out. We send emails. Everything's under their URL.
Excellent. Okay, that makes a lot more sense too. And I could okay, now I'm following. So you guys actually are really woven into the fabric of those clients you're working with.
Oh God, yeah.
I love it. All right, cool. That makes a lot of sense too. Obviously, there's a need for what you guys do, and not to step on your business, but to step kind of to the side. What are some of those things that folks like an insurance agent or somebody else who is consistently making sales calls, trying to get meetings? What are some of those things that you see people doing either poorly or that they could improve on?
Well, that's a very interesting question, and I've done a couple, about 3, 4 podcasts over the last few years, and that no, actually, I don't think anybody's asked me that. That's a really good question. So many, many years ago, when I was an employee doing
Mm-hmm.
general liability calling, work comp,
Right.
um, one of the agents used to call me up because I was out of my house back then. That was the requirement. The kids were young,
Right.
and he'd call me up and he'd say, "God, I don't know what you do, man, but these people like know who I am," which we call a solid meeting. They're ready for me when I walk. In those days, everybody walked through the door.
Yeah.
We didn't have Teams and Zoom and Google
Right.
Meet, all of that. So I'd say, I don't know. I guess I just have a gift to gab or came out talking. And people would laugh, but I really thought that's what it was.
Mm-hmm.
Well, like year four, I hired this business consultant to just sort of help me with the infrastructure and the legs of the company, because I was obviously expanding and getting more industries, and so he did what my COO Travis does, and he did the interviewing and the onboarding and all of that, and really helped me sell because my background and my wiring was like a bill collector. It wasn't like a salesperson
Yeah.
or an owner of a company for that matter.
Sure.
And so John really helped me. And what he determined is there is very different wiring, value proposition, and skill set to a professional caller, prospector, appointment setter than there is to the salesperson. Our wiring, and the biggest mistake people make because they don't know this, I didn't know it, is they think they can wear both hats and they can't. So I mean, it's hard enough for me to wear both hats, but
Right.
I have to do it being a business owner.
Yep.
So our value prop, which is really how I'm wired, is not necessarily talking fast or loud, but it's performing on your feet in 2 minutes or less.
Okay.
Okay. Knowing enough to intrigue the executive's interest to get a meeting. Then you ask 2 to 3 qualifying questions. Different clients have different qualifiers. We are not skilled to close the deal, but we don't want to waste our time and we don't want to waste their time. So we're just going
Mm-hmm.
to ask a couple questions to make sure we're in the sweet spot. Because remember,
Got
the
it.
lists are only as good as the owner updates, right? So
Right.
they could say they're $1 million in revenues and they're 200,000. So we then flip it to the salesperson, aka the expert.
Sure.
Wiring value prop skill set is about the solution complex sell with intelligence. You
Okay.
guys are the experts. We are not. We don't want to be. We don't even want to pretend to be. So there's two very different wirings here. And a lot of bosses say, you know, my salespeople cold call. Okay, are they doing it? Well, they're supposed to be. Are they getting anywhere with it? Oh, they do all right. Okay, that just means they don't want to pay my bill. So we just move on. But yeah, I mean, we're two different people.
I agree. And to that point, this is just kind of popping into my head, and I'll see what your feelings are on it. One of my biggest frustrations early on in my career in sales was that it felt like all of my leaders or my sales leaders were just the best salesmen in the company, right? And it never made sense to me that we were pulling our best sales guys to come and train or to be the overseers or what have you of the new guys or those that were trying to come up or just that had been around but they just hadn't gotten a big enough book of business that they were qualified to be the manager at that point because I felt that I was being led towards what's the best way to put this, selling their way versus being able to sell my own self and the way that works
Right.
for me. And so it was like they painted this really small box of like, well, this works for me. And I had a couple of guys and they were great at what they did, but it was pulling a style, right? I mean, it's just like, and that's just not who I am. And so that became really difficult for me to figure out. Okay, they do it this way. I'm not built that way. I'm not wired that way. How do I, kind of figure this out for myself? And so that kind of leads to what you just shared with us as well,
Yeah.
just kind of how you're wired.
Yeah. And, I mean, right. Let people just work on their own. And if sales is their niche, cool. And if cold calling is their niche, cool. But yeah, you can't clone people.
It's a fact. That's for sure. It just leads to frustration and probably much less
Yeah.
productivity.
Yeah.
So that's to share one of my hurdles. What are some of the hurdles for you? What have been some of those differentiators along this path that have like a lot of times when we do these podcasts, folks will talk about it's not that we failed, it's a learning lesson or these type of
Oh, yeah.
verbiage, if you will. But what are some of the hurdles or some of those like more difficult things that you've experienced that have been helpful to get to where you are?
Mm. Taking too much too soon. I'm one that likes to go 100 miles an hour every day. So my CAO, who happens to be my daughter, that's 34, that will eventually, she and Travis, well, they pretty much run the company.
Okay.
But she's probably a little more level-headed. And
Okay.
she's all about slow and steady wins the race, and I'm all about how much can we get now,
Right.
because I like that energy. That's me. That's who I am. And I have to admit that she's definitely probably right. So
Well, and I
that's
think some of the most successful operations have the yin and the yang, right? The balance is critical, and
oh
it sounds like that's what you found.
yeah. Yeah. It's been a struggle, but she's been around for 9 years, and we're finally, I finally at a point where I'm like, I love doing the sales. So I do that. But
Okay.
and I do a little bit of cold calling, but you know, I'm at a point where let her and Travis do it. Let them
There you go.
let,
Yeah. Let
yeah,
others
let them,
grow. I feel it. I like that. Um, yep. Sorry, this is my editor here. He's
that's okay.
jumping out of here for us.
Yeah,
Can you give me
you
a little
guys
more
don't need
volume
to.
on
I know.
hers as well so I
I
can
don't
hear
know
her?
how you're going to take this and cut it because it's like long.
Well, normally we do post pretty long videos, and so my goal is always to try to keep it under 25 minutes. I'm terrible
Yeah,
at
for
that
sure.
because I end up like the goal is to have it so you could listen to it in your car
Yes.
going, to and from the office, if
Yeah,
you
most
will.
of mine are like around 20 minutes. But there's a lot of garbage in there. I'm sure you guys can edit.
Yeah. So, and yeah, we typically will do a little bit, and this will definitely get edited out.
Yeah, for
Yeah, you're
sure.
good, buddy. You're fine.
I mean, and I don't know. I suppose it's okay to say that my daughter is in the company, right?
Say
Sometimes
that again.
sometimes I get weird about saying my daughter's in the company.
I mean, it sounds like you're. I mean, I'll put it this way: a lot of times our kids are built very similar to us, and if you found something that you are successful at, then especially if you've been a child that's been around it and you've got that same personality trait, like you're just the superstar that's coming up back behind us. I don't think it's
Yeah,
a
she
negative thing.
is.
It's like she's built for this.
Yeah, I mean, I guess that's the positive way of looking at it. And she really, I mean, she's her personality is quieter than mine, but she's definitely as good of an appointment setter as I was 30 years ago, if not better. The people just really like her mild manner.
Sure, sure. I mean, I think a lot of people don't want to be sold pushy. Just that bang, bang,
Yeah,
bang, bang, and it
yeah,
works. I've seen it work, but
yeah.
um, it
Yeah,
can.
I
Yeah.
mean, sometimes people just say to me, like even if it's a JTEL cell, you know, they set it up for me because we do the same thing we do for our clients. They do emails and cold calls and get
Okay.
me. That's all part of the marketing. And
Will you give me a little more
they'll
volume
say,
there?
no, we're not interested. We're really we're fine. I say, cool. I mean, I just said this to a guy on Tuesday morning. I was visiting with who's a real mover in town, and I said, I say to him, I care, but I don't care to a prospect because it's like when you've been doing it for this long, I've built the confidence to know it'll come.
Well, and I mean, would you say also from doing it, so you get a feel, right? There's some, I like to use the word energy or a vibe, but just kind of that you can almost feel from that person if they're buying in or if they're kind of pulling away. Would you say that, or is there something that you've kind of
I'm
got the
not real good at
special?
that. Paige is really good at intuition.
Okay,
I just like everybody.
yeah, fair
That's why
enough.
John had to do the interviewing and stuff.
Right,
Go,
I
he's
get
like,
that.
I would hire Neith like Jody. You just like everybody.
Yeah, and it's tough. That is a tough thing. I can relate to that too. It's one of those. I like to think that I'm somewhat of a trusting person, and so it's like, but don't burn me. Once you burn me, we're done.
Yep.
And you're dead to
Amen.
me. But it's also I like having I want to learn about people. I want to be engaging with folks, and so I'm with you. I like a lot of people. I can find a lot of positive out of the gate. Now,
Yeah.
the longer I have relationships with folks, they all show their true colors, and sometimes I'm wrong, and so I've tried to be a little bit better about that. But
Mhm.
anyhow,
I
um,
know. But I think it's better to be trusting than, be a skeptic.
100%, 100%,
Yeah.
100%. All right, so let's jump kind of back into a couple of my questions here too. So we've talked specific industries where you guys can add value. Um, what are do you want to get into those industries at all? Do you want to talk? Do you want to share some of that with us of just kind of where you think that you guys are just doing a
Sure.
bang up job?
Yeah, well, they all kind of fall under professional services, but as I
Okay.
mentioned earlier, technology is big because there's so many different kinds. Um, med tech, med device, big. Again, so many different avenues. Um, we do things like call into law offices, work with compliance,
Okay.
cost reduction experts that go in and save companies money, manufacturing. Again, lots of facets to that.
Yeah, I could
We
see that.
love, very hard to get into, but we love venture capital private equity. And
Okay.
not that we're calling for them per se, but we're calling for their portfolio companies. So, right, they
Sure.
bring, they fund a little baby company, a startup that says, all right, yeah, like Shark Tank, we'll give you the money,
Yep.
make something of yourself, right? So we've been hired often to open doors, set appointments for these guys.
I get
And what
it.
I
So you
like
guys
about
are
those, it's all under one roof. They own 25 companies. So you get to like try a little of everything.
absolutely well, and it's and so you guys go in with these startups or these smaller companies and put gasoline on it and just really try to get it going, start that
Yeah,
fire.
but I mean, startups that have capital or they're
Yeah, of
funded
course. Sure,
by
sure. Yeah,
business.
yeah, yeah. Big time. And that's an important,
We're
that
not cheap.
no, and you get what you pay for, right?
Exactly. Exactly. Exactly.
And I think that's the one of those things that sometimes it's hard for business owners, for anyone to swallow that, that price point. But it's also when you look at going, I mean, I can go and purchase insurance leads for what, $2 or $3 from a lead gen source.
Yep.
But what
Yep.
what am I getting? That's the whole
Yeah.
piece
What
of
are
the
you?
the puzzle.
Exactly.
It's like, and how much do I have to churn through out of all of those $3 leads to actually get one that now pays for the 100 that I've already called, ahead that
Yeah.
weren't right because
Exactly.
they weren't qualified. And
And what
so
list
you
are they
guys are
pulling
doing
it
all of
from?
those.
Is it garbage or?
Right. Right. And those are things that I think a lot of folks don't necessarily pay attention to in the beginning, and then they learn that lesson the hard way. They definitely do. One of the other things you mentioned that I think is critical for every business leader or entrepreneur are the other individuals that are involved. And I think you've mentioned I think it was your COO with you for 14 years. Some of the other individuals have been there 9, 10 years.
Yep.
Those people are a part of your team, and obviously they're critical for you guys' success. Outside of those folks, would you say that there have been mentors or others that have been involved in your life that have been pivotal in shaping this path to where you are?
Absolutely. I mean,
And how?
I could take a half an hour to list them
Yeah,
off,
sure.
but yeah, I've had a couple of mentors. One unfortunately passed away at a young age of cancer. I mean, probably he was probably 60s. John, the consultant I worked with, whose
Yeah.
passion is art. So he
Okay.
actually left the consulting business. Oh God, I lose track of time, but I'll bet you it's got to be 7, 8, 10 years ago. I mean, if I'm in business 24, yeah, I'll bet you it's that long ago. So he's really into the art thing, procuring shows and doing art, but he just a low key guy, not into marketing in terms of colors and logos and fluff and all. He was really about what's it take to make an entrepreneur tick.
Yeah.
And he's huge for me.
Absolutely.
Huge.
Well, I appreciate how candid you're being about I wasn't a business owner. That's not what I was wired for, right? And how important it is to have those individuals that are wired that way so that they can round out what you're trying to do.
Mhm.
I love hearing that. That's good.
The other thing that keeps going through my mind that I think it's important that people know
Yes,
is
please
that
share.
um, you know, I haven't, I mean, I've worked with a couple of the Fortune 500, 1,000 companies, not a lot. I find that they either have in-house teams or it's a lot of politics.
Sure.
Typically work with anybody like 3 million plus in
Okay.
revenues. They're small companies. They're, 1, 2 man operations. And the owner or his right-hand guy is closing business.
Yes.
You want to
Yep.
talk expert? Those are the experts. Okay.
Absolutely.
not the I've worked with a long line of salespeople. You know, enough said. I'm not going to elaborate on that. It just doesn't really work.
Okay.
And I think it's a waste of an owner's money personally. But I think the people, and what they're getting, and so we're calling. I'm all over the board because there's a lot. We're calling into most of our clients want to go medium, large enterprise. So we're
Okay.
calling into the big companies, but these guys just have there's I mean, maybe they've got BD people or they've got, developers or they got background people, but there's one or two main characters, and those guys are working the business.
Mm-hmm.
Oops. Um, and one of the mistakes that happened, and I think I really should showcase this, is that everybody says they can close. So
They do.
right,
They do. You're
get me
right.
in front of 10 people, I'll close it. Uh,
Yeah.
okay. Nah, they don't. And then they run they say, well, I'm paying too much money, and most of our clients really aren't seeing their return on investments till into year two.
Is that right? Okay. So you guys are engaged for a long period of time. This
Long
isn't a
time.
little short run.
Yeah. The average annual gross sale from one of our customers for the bigger programs, well, we have
Mm-hmm.
small programs too, but average 5 to 7 figures.
Sure. Sure. And those take time.
Yeah, they're not going to
So,
close them in 90 days, but they like what they're seeing. There's a 120-day trial when they start.
okay.
They see we're for real, and we really do get them into the people they want to be into, and they really are qualified. And people go, oh, okay, but they've got to be able to sustain the pipeline and keep knocking on doors. And the other thing is we're not telemarketing. We're not blasting out a bunch of crappy, garbagey appointments where people say, oh, I just took the meeting to get your guy off the phone, or what are you calling me about? Or, ours are, there's solid meetings. So in that case, you're probably talking, depending on the industry, an appointment every 10 to 15 hours.
Okay.
On our big programs, it's about 90 hours a month of calling.
Okay.
They're going to
That's a
see
serious amount of time.
it's a lot. And
Mm-hmm.
that's also throwing e-blasts in there.
Okay.
And we call on those on the top 200 that answer high. It's a whole cool system that they don't go to spam or blacklists or anything. And so it's like 86 plus hours, a couple hours on the email stuff. But they're only seeing like 4 to 6 appointments a month. Six is a
Okay.
lot, probably more like 4 to 5.
Okay. Um, what are some of the things? Are you with? You guys have a pretty. You've mentioned just the interview process, right? And that there's just some steps and some testing and just some personality and how how they're wired. How much training are you applying with your team? And are there some? And maybe I'm asking for too much here, but are there some for those of folks who aren't your target demographic? But what are some of those things that you have found or your team has found get the call back or get the person to actually start to speak? You know what I'm like? What are those? Are there any kind of the tips and tricks, if you will, of engaging with your potential prospect?
Well, they don't call back very often,
They don't. That's a fact. They don't.
but we call them.
Yep.
um, I mean, I guess the one tip I would probably say is I always ask them if they have a minute,
Okay.
because if they don't, I'm not going to be rude about it.
Sure.
I'm hoping the callers do. Travis does all the training and stuff, so I don't really get involved in that. But for me, it's do you have a minute? And most of them say yes. Some of them say, I really don't, but what's this about?
Mm-hmm.
That's a trick question because they want to know what it's about so they can avoid you.
Fair. Fair.
So
So
I
what do
try
you
to just
respond there?
say, you know what? I'll just give you a call back.
pique the interest, keep them a little bit intrigued, so that they're not trying to get ahead of
I
you and
mean,
then just
there are
block it.
times that I've kind of spilled the beans and, just a little bit, thinking they never answer the phone again.
Yeah, I know that one. I know that one. Or one of the things that I've run into, or folks that I've been in sales with, is just the show up and the throw up. You share way too much out of the gate, and they're
Oh God, no.
overwhelmed. And it's like, well, where are we even going with this? Like, you've told me all this information, but what is the ask? You know what I mean? So I
Oh
think
yeah.
it's important to show your value, but at the same time to have that tight pitch cleaned up, right? And to be courteous. It drives me nuts. Like when you get the phone call and it's almost like they're angry at you. Like I don't. Why am I going to deal with you? That doesn't make
Yeah.
sense. Right?
Or,
It's
or
attitude.
just start talking. Like,
Oh,
I mean, it's crazy, just start blabbing away. I mean, I get phone calls like that and I go,
of
wait,
course.
what's this about?
Right. Right. Um, so I think as we are trying to keep our time here concise for our viewers, so we can keep them around. Thank you those who are still watching. Um, what are some takeaways that you can kind of leave us here with of your, I don't know, not necessarily your journey, but I know that for anyone who's in business to some degree is going to have to be doing some type of sales on some level, right? What are some of those things that our viewers and our audience should be thinking about, as they're out growing their business? For me, it's staying motivated, right? A lot of times you hear no, you hear no, you hear no, you hear no, and it's like, how do you get back on the horse and keep going again? But what are some of those things that you've instilled in yourself to just continue to pick the phone up?
Every no leads you to a yes,
Okay.
is our belief. Never say never. So I am not one to really dead anything, DNC it.
Mm-hmm.
I'll put it out for a year,
Really?
6 months. Yeah.
Okay.
People change. They could have woken up on the wrong side of the bed. You don't know. You don't know why they're telling you no. I
That's a
would
great
call
point.
back, and I mean, I will tell clients that, 6 months ago, make sure you read the notes because 6 months ago they said absolutely not. Today I got an appointment. So never say never in this business.
And
And every call should be, I mean, you need energy in your voice. And if you don't have energy, you're just going to sound like every other telemarketer that's calling off a script.
that
Oh,
those both are really good points. Because I know for my own self of a lot of times I've made enough calls or whatever, and it's almost like I just got to put this one away,
and
and I'm
take a
yeah,
break.
that's it. But yeah, it's not
Take
ever
a
dead.
break.
It's never say never. I feel you there.
I mean, I
You
could
know,
call for 20 hours and get nothing. And then this morning I called for a couple and I got two.
right?
Go figure. Huge
The
company.
highs and lows. Yeah. Well, how do you keep that balance for yourself? After the are the two, at the end, is that worth it? And you're always just going to keep, going after
Yeah.
it? Okay.
Yeah.
It's just recognizing that it's going to happen. Every no leads to a yes. So
Yeah. It's
start
hard
where
for
you
me.
started,
I
right?
love it. Yeah.
Yeah, you're wired that way. I love it. It's good. I
Yeah.
can see it. You wear it.
Yeah.
Awesome. Final thoughts here. We like to kind of just talk about burn the ship, right? And I think that the metaphor burn the ship is pretty self-explanatory. Essentially, it's like, when was that moment that you knew this is what I'm doing? Forget everything else. I think you shared a little bit of that with your daughter, and that at that 3 month period. But what would you say is that defining moment for you of burning the ship?
You're asking me when I knew that I was going to do this and it was going to be something.
Yeah, yeah. Or I mean, ultimately, it may have been 24 years ago when you had this other company. It sounds like they were acquired. Things got shifted around, and it's like, I'm not dealing with this anymore. I don't want to be collecting a paycheck from
Oh,
somebody
no, I was
else.
a nervous. Yeah. No, I
And
did it
so,
because a couple of people said you really should go on your own. I was like, I mean, I'm from a family of entrepreneurs,
are you okay?
but I was raised to actually be a stay-at-home, the first female in my company to have a career, if you will.
Okay.
Um, I think when I knew it was going to be something was probably year 2 or 3 where the business tripled. Year 2, yeah, year 1, year 2, it tripled. to the point where my CPA that still thought I was a small company. And I am a small company, but that's kind of when I knew I had something.
Awesome. Yeah, and that's when that growth started. And
Yeah.
was it a client or a number of clients, or how did that kind of
It was
transition when the
mainly
first?
one. It was
Yeah,
mainly one who was with me for
I feel like that's what. Say that again.
17 years he was with me.
Wow. Okay. So it was, yeah, it wasn't just a client. I mean, this is a lifer. That's awesome. And so, what's the average of one of your clients with working with you guys? I mean, is it somewhat that once they start, they are with you all, or is it, is the
They can
average 5 years
close.
and then they kind of pick it up, or it sounds like they stick around.
They do stick around if they can close and if they can sustain. So I would like, we've got a client that's been with us 11 or 12 years. And
Okay.
this guy was 17 and I mean, he got a divorce, so things changed. But
Sure.
had he not, he would probably still be with us.
I got you. I got you. Yeah, you got to be able to change for sure and adjust. And I'm sure that's a pretty critical thing for you guys as well, just kind of staying ahead, to be out there. I love the idea that you guys are really, I think I used the word woven into your clients, right? And I think, your weekly meetings and representing with the emails and, you become an operating arm of that
Yeah.
company, and
Yeah.
you're right there with them, and you're in it with them too, which is it's special, it's unique, and I think that's a big differentiator versus what I've heard of, in the third party, lead generation, which I wouldn't put you guys in that. I think you're relationship builders, and I think that that's a critical component, and I have a lot of respect for it because it's not easy.
Yeah.
Um, Final thoughts? Any closing words? Anything you want to share?
Just know that prospecting is really important and having a pipeline. I mean,
100%.
you get really complacent with, yeah, we got a lot of business and we're okay. And, we're fine for probably the next 10 years. Maybe, maybe.
Right. One shift, you know what I mean? If you're not staying on top of it and continue to bring
Listen,
them in,
happened to me. Yeah. Always be prospecting.
always be prospecting. All right, this is Burn the Ship. How do our client or how does our audience get in touch with you if they're interested to learn more? Social media, website. If you just want to repeat those for us, I know we've said it a few times. That'd be great, though.
www.meetings, meetings,
Perfect. Social medias, anything?
I'm on LinkedIn,
You are
a
on LinkedIn. I found you. Yep.
little bit of Facebook, not too much, LinkedIn, and our website.
Beautiful. Well, I've appreciated our time together, and I
Thank
mean, this
you.
is obviously it's a personal thing for me and something that I do often, and it's always nice hearing somebody on the other side who this is all you do, and for a sales guy, I struggle with that piece, right? And it's sometimes I feel like you're almost bothering someone, and so there's definitely an art and there's a technique to it, and it's great seeing somebody who's out there and who's built a full business on this, and
I'm willing to talk to you on offline and see if I can, give you any suggestions or, I know your industry well. So
you do. You absolutely do. And I appreciate that you were kind of speaking my language. Listen, I really appreciate it.
thank
This
you.
is
I do.
Jody Weinberg with Meetings You Want, JT Connections,
Tell, just say Jake.
JTEL,
Yeah.
JTEL. All right. Beautiful. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. Well, bye bye.
Absolutely. See you. We'll talk soon. Bye.